folks never understand it because they were not born in Australia. I was, and they're not understanding the kind of worldview that I have developed, and they're not equipped with the grammar that I speak in. So everybody needs that guy who's going to channel the problem with the solution. And I am merely an attempt to get those solutions to them, and to make sure that they start to actually believe that they're not alone. It's it's every man's thought. Whoever is going to be born, in a culture which is stronger, dominant, more giving than the household that they're born into. Muslims are mostly these days, in the last few hundred years, are born into a superstitious household, which they don't really understand themselves. And unless we start tagging that and classifying that properly, kids are not going to understand why their mommy or daddy is not answering their questions properly, because you guys are not used to grays. If you cannot understand it, you're going to get a very obvious confusion, and you're going to have to get rid of that confusion. But it's the most amazing thing that I see in overseas Muslims is that they're okay living with that confusion, not knowing those answers, which are innate and very loud.
Yeah.
It's okay for them. But kids your age, you're not okay. Nobody's actually, or no one's supposed to be okay. That's a very,
Of course.
it's a big event that, Muslims today are okay with not knowing the answers of, basic concepts of life, and they're just going to live 50, 60 years on it.
So the thing is, you explain that you give solutions to these problems, you know?
Yeah, I'm
The
trying to
thing is,
connect the dot. Yes, yeah.
why should Muslims listen to what you say?
No, Muslims should listen to everybody and try and get their own sense out of things. It's not about me or anybody else. Okay? Whoever is going to connect them with their Prophet ﷺ and get a rationale in, and get or talk through the avenues of common sense and, your basic sets of knowledge that kids in their 20s have, 15, 20, 15, 16, 17 is the thinking age. That's the age where your brain actually starts to generate real questions. Before that, you're not thinking. After this age, you start demanding answers. Most Muslims in their 50s are not equipped to give answers. That's why most Muslims who are currently in their 50s do not have kids who are obedient to their philosophies. Okay, it's not just Australia or overseas, everywhere. Any philosopher any believer of a philosophy who does not really understand the structure of his belief is not going to be able to generate, the next generation into his belief, because he does not have the eloquence to explain the ways around this whole philosophy. And we are not just philosophers as Muslims.
Yeah.
We have a very clear ideology which is going to demand a lot of stuff. And Muslims naturally carry those demands. They do not know how to articulate those demands to their kids, let alone explain the function of them, or sense of understanding why this demand is there in the first place.
So many things you say, as we know, you're very, especially in Pakistan and stuff, refuted by scholars. This that very controversial person. What do you think? Why do you think you are controversial?
I'm Well, you'll have to enlist a few so that I can actually uh, go bit by bit. However, general resistance I'm getting from the mainstream scholarship is about the ideology, the core, the philosophy of why Islam demands of whatever it demands. And I'm pretty extreme in explaining, in their point of view, I'm pretty extreme. I'm not controversial. I'm true extreme. And wherever there is that word controversy spoken is about those concepts of the Quran, where I'm actually propagating and explaining in mere basic terms that Quran is demanding a totally different geometry of the universe. I'm making you understand bigger objectives, and the way science is trying to open tiny little doors. Quran opens bigger and wider doors towards understanding the whole concept of why we are here.
So I want
What's
to
the
speak to you about that a little bit. The Quran and science. What does Quran say about science?
Science is just another name of understanding the a human attempt to understand what the universe looks like and how it behaves like, so that we can adjust to it. That's science, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to adjust to the behavior of the universe. Now, if you do not know the geometry of the universe, how are you going to behave accordingly? Quran actually explains the literal geometry of the whole seven heavens. Okay,
Wow.
science only tries to explain as best it, uh, and most of it is just a calculated conjecture of the cosmic background and the first heaven. They don't call it the first heaven; they call it the entirety of the whole universe. So, okay, here's the thing: if you do not know where you are in, what's the make of this whole universe is, then you're not going to be able to do much about this.
Mm.
Every single progress that any human being has made has come from the basic concept of understanding the makeup of this whole um, the world that we're in. It's not just understanding who I am, but where I am and how it all behaves around me. Hence the laws of physics and understanding cosmology and astronomy,
Mm.
and that changes everything, literally everything. If we have a different definition of the universe, we're a different species altogether. And this is what Muslims are not understanding right now. We cannot bow down to an attempt which is going to be refuted in less than 10 years from science.
Mm.
And it's okay. They're not claiming that this is what it is. They're saying this is what it is till now. We're going to discover more and then we'll formulate some other hypothesis. So the Quran is not going to follow a human being's intellect. Quran is going to set it. Quran is going to be oblivious to it, literally.
Mm.
Okay. Quran is the intellect of the maker of the universe. Okay. Of course, a book from the intellect of the maker of the universe.
So the Quran mentions the sky a lot. So Surah Mulk, Surah Tariq, it goes to reference again and again
Yeah,
about
yeah.
what's up.
Yeah.
So what does this sort of tell us as Muslims?
Well, it most two things. It's a very good question. First of all, it shows a human being of how infinite his imagination should be.
Mm.
Okay, and that changes everything. Okay, that actually raises the bar. It actually widens the actual horizon of how we should actually present our own selves to each other. Okay, to the universe. Now, I'm using the expression of philosophy a lot, but understand what I'm trying to get at. Let me give you an example. We would not have invented the airplane if we did not know how the atmosphere works. Okay?
Yeah.
We would not have actually, and this is the most basic example. Now, keep that in mind while I say this next statement. We would not have been as moral as we are or can be if we do not understand how this universe works around us. Okay? So, it's not just about the morality. I just purposely picked that out so that you can understand this is how 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 important it is. And from morality to expansion of our horizon of progress, of how we can actually reach towards bigger and you know wider uh, goals of sustaining ourselves as a species, understanding the value of knowledge becomes way more pivotal. For example, if we did not understand this concept of physics,
Mm.
and we didn't for so long, we were just using so much, we didn't really open the minds towards understanding how this planet behaves. We would not have invented a diaper. Okay.
Really?
Yeah. This is how simple I'm going to tell you things are. Now, once we understand how this whole structure of the universe behaves, it actually sets the horizon, the scope of human beings, the whole community, the mind of the whole species. And to strengthen the mind of the whole species, we need to understand the actual truth around the whole geometry and the symmetry and the makeup of little and big things around
Mm.
the whole planets and galaxies and everything. Now, if there is a certain model of progress which says that this is it, whatever you see is what you see, and if you can go there, good enough. 1,000 years ago, people did not, or 2,000 years, maybe a little, time. The Tao philosophy at that time did not really realize, what these constellations represent. They used them to maneuver around paths on the planet.
Yeah.
Okay, just merely for directions.
Sort of one question I have.
Before, no, don't, because I'm not even, because everyone's gonna get confused as to why I was telling you all of this.
Yeah.
A man from 3,000 years ago, when he looked at the skies, okay, he couldn't comprehend, since he couldn't comprehend the entirety and the scope of how grand all of the schema is, he couldn't put anything to use in this planet for himself and other people. Now that we know what Jupiter looks like and how big it is, how sun works and how big it is, or where it is and how it behaves and moves, and then Andromeda and other galaxies and trillions and trillions and trillions of galaxies, so now we behave differently on this planet, not just between two human beings. I'm talking about as a human being. Now we're trying to actually go to Mars or wherever we can. That actually gives us a lot more energy and power to invent more stuff, to go faster than light, presume, in our advent to chase bigger goals. So as a civilization, the concept of universe is pivotal. As a civilization, we need to understand what all of this actually is.
And the Quran encourages this.
Quran actually enforces it. Okay?
Yeah.
It enforces you to look up and think. Okay? It enforces it. Every book Allah has ever written is all about the geometry of the universe. Okay? Human beings needed a guiding light to translate all of that because we can't really feel it. We can just see it. And we're so minuscule that we can't really comprehend how big all of this is. Okay? And as soon as we start to do that, all